Turn that up. Check, check. Yep.
You want me to help you with your...
Oh, I'm good. I got this.
You want this or not?
Nope, I'm good. The lectern mic is... Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Hello, welcome, OWASP. I'm sorry that I'm kicking this off and I'm like doing like the first little lightning talk, but my name is Adina Shanholtz, and I can actually make my PowerPoint bigger for you guys to see. And this is actually not the topic of the talk that I'm going to give. Unfortunately, lightning means shorter, but the slides I'm going to use is a subset of this. This is about an hour-long talk where I discuss making virtual and mixed reality environments. I think the next time I'm delivering the talk is in May to the New York Software Engineers Group. So if you're interested in seeing like more in-depth analysis between virtual and mixed reality, feel free to come. So anyway, my name is Adina Shanholtz, and I'm a technical evangelist for Microsoft. And what this means is I'm a developer who speaks to other developers. And I have a couple of topics that I focus on, specifically around immersive media, so virtual, mixed, I guess augmented reality, though I haven't done much with it specifically, but also game development, a little bit with chatbots and AI, and open source. So I would recommend reaching out to me on Twitter. I am the Faye Technologist. I am very friendly and like to respond and like to talk about things. So let's talk about this term, mixed reality. There are 4 types of reality: virtual, augmented, mixed, and actual reality, which is the one that we are currently in. So I have this handy-dandy chart that, puts together the differences between them. So on one side of the spectrum, we have virtual reality, a complete virtual environment, replaces your real reality. And on the other side, we have augmented reality. And as you might recall, like Google Glass and Pokemon Go, those came first. So augmented reality, because they made the space first, doesn't really interact with the physical environment. It's kind of an overlay, a heads-up display. So in Pokemon Go, you're playing and you're trying to catch the Pokemon and they jump, but they're not actually jumping from the ground. They're just kind of placed somewhere on the screen abstractly. That's augmented reality. And somewhere in the middle, there is a blend of when the digital objects interact with the physical world. And that is the HoloLens. There's only one device out for people to actually try, and that is the HoloLens. People go, oh, but wait a minute. Meta or other, pick a technology that doesn't exactly exist, and I say, well, when it's out on the market for me to try, I will have an opinion on it. Until then, the HoloLens is your go-to, and we will break it down. So the HoloLens has 3 different types of input. That is gaze, gesture, and voice. So the HoloLens has a see it, say it type of input, so you should be able to look at anything and say select, and it'll be the same as tapping on it, or doing the tapping gesture, which in this case is from the knuckle down like that. It's like tap. There are a couple of different types of gestures: tap, tap, and hold to manipulate, and then tapping and holding on a specific axis. And we'll see some examples that help to put, I guess, a demo to those concepts. And gaze. Which is, I always love to explain gaze, because when people first try the HoloLens, they go, oh, I can't use my peripheral vision to look at things. And to that I respond, hey audience, isn't this creepy? Because I'm looking at you with my peripheral vision. People don't actually look at people with their peripheral vision. You make eye contact, right? So if I'm looking at the projector, I'm not going to look like that because that's weird. I'm going to look at it and then select it. So common mistakes that I see when people first try the HoloLens is doing a lot of this, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The HoloLens has to be able to see the fact that you are about to gesture, or tapping, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like touch the hologram, which is incorrect for a lot of reasons. But we are used to a lot of phones and tapping, right? So it's an easy mistake, but it's actually a lot more natural than that. Other things I want to talk about with regard to the HoloLens is spatial sound and spatial mapping. Spatial mapping, this is how the HoloLens can interact with your world. It is constantly taking in input from your world and creating a 3D mesh that holograms, objects made of light and sound, can interact with. spatial sound. Turns out humans are very, very bad at looking above and behind us. If you don't have sound to prompt users of where your objects are in 3D space, you will never look. I made this mistake myself. I was gonna have falling cassette tapes spawning all over in space, in 360 space, and I didn't include a sound effect. And so I went, oh yeah, I made this game, I'm gonna be naturally great at it. And I had no idea that there was like stuff falling behind me and above me, and it was a mess. So spatial sound really saves you in your experiences when you code for this. So let's break down what the HoloLens is. I have one right here, but I have also these really fancy slides that walk through it. So the first things first is it is a self-contained, untethered computer. Everything else that you see out there, even the Vive, which is awesome and does room scale VR, is tethered to a powerful machine. Or we have things like Google Cardboard or Samsung Gear that are tethered to a phone. This is a fully functional computer running Windows 10. 2, super advanced array of sensors that are constantly taking in terabytes and terabytes of data, crunching and making it into a mesh. 3, transparent lenses, because you know what doesn't work well with light?
May I have your attention, please?
No.
May I have your attention, please?
Dang it.
This is a building emergency action plan directive. As of this moment, the FEY is investigating on an incident on 41st and 40th Street on 8th Avenue.
Are you kidding?
We advise you to avoid these avenues and streets. May I have your attention, please?
Oh, that sucks.
We're actually in a really safe place right now with all of y'all. Thank you all.
Right? Oh, well, so much for going home.
He just
Well-
reminded us why we're all here right now.
Okay, well, that's great. So much for leaving. So okay, I guess let me backtrack. So, transparent lenses, because what doesn't work well with light? More light. Holograms are objects made of light and sound, and so when you have a really bright environment, you can't see your holograms. So, tinted lenses helps with that. Well, doop, 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 doop. Come on, beautiful slides. Holographic processing unit, a beautiful piece of silica that is designed to crunch the terabytes and terabytes of data input from the array of sensors. And that is the thing that actually makes this a piece of future tech.
Do you have like a GPS sensor inside, or?
If you want a full array of sensors, there's actually a list of the specs of this online. Spatial sound. If you notice, these little red things are speakers. And notice, for all of you 3D audio engineers in the room, there are only 2 of them, instead of the array of 360 speakers that we usually know and love. And that is because we have 2, count them, 2 ears on our heads. Actually, this works very well. It really helps you tell where it is in 3D space. Ah, yes. It can get bigger. So anyway, hey, I heard that. For all you comedians in the audience. So let's do some demos. You guys want to see this thing in action?
You're going to cue me on the
Ah, right. Do not video my demos. Please, that is all I ask. You can take pictures. Do not record video. Thank you. repository specifically is on GitHub. So feel free to go and contribute to it. So a lot of the ways that you develop, there are two main ways that you develop for HoloLens, and that is through Universal Windows applications and Unity, which I am a game developer, so that came very naturally for me. So if we go to GitHub, I can bring up the repo. So this is the first repo, which is Fruit Warrior. If you are interested, that is the URL. Feel free to take a picture of it. The other one is in another repository, which I will bring up in a second. But it's actually very easily findable. So Galaxy Explorer HoloLens, you'll find the GitHub repo. And I believe something like that, since it's a 3D experience, would have been developed in Unity. So if you use Unity, you can edit the code, contribute to it. That would be really cool to have another TRAPPIST solar system.
Okay, do we have any questions for Adina?
What kind of a processor does the HoloLens have?
The
The processor?
processor. So I'm going to be clear right now. I'm not going to answer any easily Googleable questions for one very particular reason, and that is if I get it wrong, I'm no longer allowed to play with it because I work for Microsoft. And so I don't have a lot of this stuff memorized, like the specific hardware aspects, because that's on the main HoloLens page and it's very easily Googleable. So I'd rather point people to the blog and not misquote it.
Well, I think you did an amazing job giving us a presentation. Did everybody think that she did amazing? She jumped in. Look at this huge crowd here. Thank you so much. Super excited. So, as you know, I'm sure you know this guy, Tom Brennan. He's like the OWASP leader here. And yeah, where's Ken? Hey.
So we have a lot of volunteers that help out with the chapter. So if you're a part of that organizer team, please come on up. So I want to give everybody a sort of an opportunity to say hello. And Terrence, Tom Ryan's here. There's a few folks that always help out. So guys, thank you very much. If it wasn't for everybody's help, none of this stuff would happen. Thanks. And for those that don't know, we do this in New York City as well as New Jersey. The website is sort of the landing page for this. And we're doing some new stuff, right? We're experimenting in different areas this year, 2017, especially in New York. I just left meeting with some folks in Newark that have a very big building that may be the new home to OWASP New Jersey shortly. But again, there's an opportunity to do different things. So if your organization would like to participate, if you have a crazy idea that needs some OWASPers to participate, just step up, ask. It's not that big of a thing, and everybody here's a volunteer. In particular with New York, we've done some experimentation with Natasha. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and perhaps our future.
Okay, so as you noticed, there's a couple different things exhibiting here. We have a group over here setting up their gaming center, and the other side, I was trying to open up that door since they're kind of isolated back there, and they have a learning technique with their gaming. Hey, how you doing? And also with the Fly's Eye technology, which is it's a platform, it's like a module for 3D advancement. And I feel like with all this bombardment of all this data, it's really helpful to have reference to visuals so that you can actually make better decisions in such times of emergency. Even as we heard today from the loudspeaker, as time goes on, it's going to continue to accelerate for all of us to make faster decisions and also be able to communicate clearly to our public, because there's things that happen in the vault and there's other things that happen, of course, out to the public and what they're capable of understanding. So I'm really happy to be a part of this this get together here. And Tom, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for involving me.
Cool. All right, so one more thing, and we'll move on to our next speaker, and they can get set up. Tasha, our next speaker can get set up if you want. So I handed out about 300 of these. If you have one, can you raise it up? It's a threat defects matrix. You take it and fold it in half and rip it. Now you have two, right? So for anyone that's sitting next to you that doesn't have one, give them one. So this is a brand new OWASP project. Sunil Yu at Bank of America, and I were talking at Signal Art into Science in Austin, Texas, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we were talking about RSA and all the different conferences and all the technologies and how the community can be better. So what you're looking at here is what will become an OWASP project, or is an OWASP project that will be launching publicly probably in 3 or 4 days. Sunil's personal email address is on this, as well as his Twitter account. And what I told him we would do tonight, since he can't be here, I think he's out of North Carolina, we told him that we would try to filter this through some of the OWASP chapters around the world. And as you may or may not know, there's 250 of them in 110 countries. So as we start collecting the data, just take a look at this. The idea is that we're going to start classifying information for organizations and businesses and put it into a metrics, which is going to help everybody. There is no right or wrong answer. There'll be an online form to click through and fill this out very quickly. So if you look at it and you like it and you want to participate in the project, it'll be, like I said, online shortly as an OWASP project. And if you want to get a head start on it, feel free to reply to Sunil on his little box up here. But my point is that this is sort of grassroots, right? This is how it gets started. And then we can help improve the industry constantly by scrutinizing what we do and who we are and the technologies we use. And that's sort of the big picture, right? OWASP is about collaboration, knowledge sharing, and certainly open source. This is meant to be a scorecard, and it's meant to help sort of improve technology from small organizations to big financial services firms. So this is a quick note. Please look into that. I think it's worth its weight in gold, and it will be officially pushed out to all of the 55,000 OWASP members on, I think, Thursday, and then there'll be an online ability to fill this out online. But with that, we're good to go for Alex. Yeah. Yes. Yes. If you don't mind, please find a seat with a friend. And if it's hot and you want to talk, please go in the hallway. That way we can move it along. It is warm in here. Maybe Microsoft can turn up the air.
Yeah.
Let's see.
You have a question? You have a question?
Let's see if this works.
All right. So, come on, Virgilia.
So Alex is here, Dr. Alex Yampolsky. He actually just spoke at a conference over at Yale. How did that go?
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good?
It was pretty good. It was good to be back at the alma mater.
Yeah.
So I saw there was a lot of heavy hitters there, as well as yourself in the field. That was pretty cool. Did they touch upon anything that struck you?
Yeah, so the topic, so actually the stuff that Natasha refers to, there was a good Yale cyber conference over this weekend. And I'm going to speak actually about the same topic, about how to reduce uncertainty through technology. So it should be kind of like a fun conversation that I hope we can try to keep interactive.
Exactly. So you want to start? Or?
Yeah.
I can help you.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Good. So there are a couple of seats here. So if people, well, whoever wants to hide in the back, that's okay. But there are also some seats in front. So we're gonna get started. So the topic. Guys, we're gonna get started. Let's try to have one conversation. So the topic I want to talk about is how do you reduce uncertainty in security, right? And what does uncertainty mean? That's the first question that you want to ask. But I'll give you a little bit of a background about myself, what I do. Also wanted to give a big thanks to Tom, to the rest of the OWASP team. I think the work that they're doing is amazing. Like, I'm a big fan of OWASP, the tools that they develop, and it's a non-profit. Everybody's doing it in a spare time besides their full-time job, so it's really hard to create such an amazing organization. Let's just give a round of applause. So basically, when people ask me what I do, I tell them I alternate between building things and breaking things. I'm a security guy. I worked at Microsoft, worked at Oracle, worked at Goldman Sachs, was a chief security officer at Guild Group. And right now I'm a CEO of a company called Security Scorecard. We're in the city. We're about 110 people headquartered here in the city, over 300 enterprise customers like Pepsi-Cola, McDonald's, Goldman Sachs, many others, funded by Sequoia Capital and by Google. And what we do is we basically gather a lot of data on every single company in the world, including every company that you guys work for. And we rate those companies on a scale of 0 to 100 about how effective your security practices are. And all of it is done through OSINT, open source intelligence, so we don't need to ask anybody for permission or consent. So the goal is that we're trying to solve is how do you deduce what's happening inside the company from the outside. And before that was in academia. I did my PhD in cryptography at Yale. So the first question that somebody might ask is, if you look at the headlines, everybody talks about cybersecurity. More people care about cybersecurity than ever. Only in 2016 alone, there were over 300 security startups that were funded. I mean, when I go to the floor of RSA, I literally get an anxiety attack from all the solutions and the vendors on the floor. And also everybody says the security market is growing. Billions of dollars are being invested into security. There's more data than ever. Everybody has the best, latest threat intelligence feed that claims to solve all of your problems. At the same time, the data breaches happen more and more frequently. There's more and more breaches. So why is there so much uncertainty? We're spending more money. We're talking more about the topic. There are more vendors that are claiming to have a panacea for this solution, but at the same, we're not winning, we're losing. So what I want to talk about in this talk is some of the reasons. What are some of the reasons for uncertainty that we have? And what are some tips that you could take away in managing the organization, running a security as a CISO, as a director of security, or as a practitioner that would hopefully provoke people to think something different. So like my hope is that at the end of a talk, there's going to be at least one thing that's going to resonate in somebody's mind, and you might walk away and think something different or do something different when it comes to managing security. So I'm going to try to keep it not too technical. So if you think about the change in mentality between the business guys and the security guys, the business guys want to make more money, and the biggest security risk to any company in the world is not getting SQL injection attack or an APT. It's running out of money. The biggest security risk, if you run out of money, you're done as a company. So the business folks who run the business, including me as a CEO of a company, we care about revenue and we care about business projects. So there was a natural shift towards the cloud about 10 years ago, and everybody was excited. More and more people got put to the cloud, and there's no reason why you want to create your own application for tracking sales leads if you are a consultancy company. You're just going to use Salesforce. There's no reason why, if you're a retail e-commerce shop, of why you're going to create your own storage solution to store files. You're just going to use Box or Dropbox or some other solution. So it's a natural decision, which makes sense. The problem is, after you move to the cloud, the CISO is distraught. Like, what do you do with all the complexity? So if you think about what happened just in the past 10 years, we started with a fortress. So fortress is your data center, your company. Usually all the crown jewels used to be stored within your company. It wasn't somewhere else outside. And you would erect a moat after a moat. So you would do a defense in depth approach where you put one layer of security after another and hope that nobody gets in. So now people travel. They bring their own devices to work. They log in from their home computers. Now you have your home environment that's now exposed to additional threats. I mean, maybe you have Citrix and virtualization, but still, if your home computer is compromised and you're downloading work documents on it, if you're logging into various places, now your home computer or your hotel room or the business center where you log in is in scope. And the sensitive data could travel there. And the further complexity that creates even more complexity is that we're all part of an ecosystem. So we're all part of an ecosystem, and a typical e-commerce retailer uses dozens and dozens of suppliers, partners, when you just place a purchase on a website. If you buy a shirt like this on a website and you put in your credit card and your name, information is going to travel to over a dozen companies. It's going to travel to UPS or FedEx for shipping. It's going to travel to a credit card processing company. It's going to travel maybe to Omniture or some other company for analytics of your behavior as a user. There's going to be more and more places that it travels. I mean, you entered it in just one website, but all of a sudden it's in 20 different places. And so now we're all part of an ecosystem, and we're no longer reliant on only our own security. So before, this used to be your company, and you worried only about your own security. You would get an IDS, a firewall, you would train your people on security awareness. But the important part is it's not just you. Now it's your facilities, it's your human resources. For Sourcing, you might be using SAP Ariba. Now all of a sudden you're relying on SAP not getting hacked. For legal, you might be using DocuSign to sign your contracts. Now you're relying on DocuSign not getting hacked and your contracts not getting out. So now you're part of this very complicated ecosystem where all these companies interrelate with each other. And guess what? Those companies use others because SAP Ariba might use 20 other companies that they share the data. They might be hosting in Rackspace or Heroku or something else. And those companies have more and more and more. So it's a graph. And the compromise of any of one of those links leads to a demise of a company. So who here in the room, just by a raise of hands, heard of the Fazio data breach? How many people heard of the Fazio data breach? So like one person, any others? Fazio, F-A-Z-I-O? Anybody heard of that? So Fazio is a small air conditioning contractor, HVAC contractor, that was Sorry? Yep, Target. Everybody knows it as a Target breach. Nobody says Fazio breach. It was Target breach, but it was really the Fazio. They were the contractor. They had connection to Target because Target paid them money. I mean, but guess who suffered? Yeah, you're part of an ecosystem, I mean, if this building, I don't know, if I trip because there's a hole in this floor and the architect didn't plan it properly, we can argue about who's accountable, but we're all part of an ecosystem. If my taxi driver gets in an accident, then okay, I guess it's him. Or maybe it's a manufacturer of a car because the wheel broke in the middle of a ride. But like the point is, it's not about accountability. I'm not trying to point a finger, but the point is we're part of an ecosystem, but the bigger guy takes a bigger reputation hit because everybody knows Target, and they suffered millions and millions of dollars as a result in reputational damage. So that's the thing on the right. So the major third-party breaches are becoming the norm, and this increases in complexity, this increases in uncertainty. It becomes very complicated. So in this talk, over the next 25, 30 minutes or so, I will give you 5 concrete tips about what you can do to reduce uncertainty in your organization. And these are going to be high-level tips. So tip number 1, there was a really good talk by Rob Joyce. So if you want to Google for that talk, it's called Disrupting Nation-State Hackers. And Rob Joyce is head of NSA, NSA's Tailored Access Operations. And basically in that talk, he gave a talk. If you want to make my job harder, if you want to make a nation-state hacker's job harder for us to break into your organization, here are the things that you need to do to make a job really hard if we want to hack your company or hack your house. And it's a great talk, but one of the key takeaways is this sentence right there, that spies have little trouble getting into your network because they know better what's on your network than you do. Like, that sentence should sink in. The spies and the nation-state hackers know better what's on your network than you do. Like, you could be a multi-billion-dollar company and you think you know what's going on, but do you really know how things are seen from the outside? Because if you're a hacker or you're a security pen tester, you're not going to care about, security architecture diagram and, are you doing ITIL version 2 and, how your playbook looks. The bad guys are going to look from the outside and see what the low-hanging fruit are. Like, what's noticeable? Let me try a couple of things that I know in my toolbox. If you look at the hacker chatter, if you go look at the hacker chatter, they talk about OWASP a lot and the OWASP tools. Like, you go look at any hacker forum, they're going to say, let's use Deerbuster for path traversal, which is an OWASP project, or like, let's use Burp Suite or something like that to look at the AppSec logs. So they use the same techniques. And so the tip number 1 is really know how your organization looks from the outside. Do an outside check. Run something like Qualys SSL Labs. Look at Shodan. Look at various externally accessible information to really understand how things look from the outside versus what you think they are. Because 99% of the time they're different. We had a customer, still a customer, a hedge fund who's using a service, and we noticed a FTP server in Japan, and they reached out to us and said, like, that's not a server. We said, we double checked, and it was their server that they forgot about. They didn't deprovision it. And it was out there with the default password. And so, make sure you know what's in your network. So for example, SKG Consultancy Taxation Services. It's tax season, so everybody's rushing to finish their taxes, and you might consider using SKG Consultancy Taxation Services. How do you know they're secure or not? Any ideas, any suggestions? Yeah, they use HTTPS. Well, I'm not available, I'm sleeping or on vacation. What else do you do? It's using HTTPS, I'm on vacation. What else do you do to figure out if this is secure? You can't run a vulnerability scanner. It's not your company, so you don't have a permission to scan their ports or do path traversal or something like that. What do you do?
Look at the score on the site.
Look at what?
The score, the reputational site.
How do you do it? Google it. Good. Excellent idea. So whenever you don't know something, you Google it. So has anybody heard of Havij? So Havij is a SQL injection tool. It's basically like a graphical SQL injection tool for lazy hackers because they don't like SQL map. SQL map requires you to use command line. So in Havij, you have to basically just click boxes, and then it intrusively tries to break into a company. And then the best part is, if a company is vulnerable, then it's just gonna create an HTML file in the company's folder, and it's gonna say, here's a Havij report. You wanna find those Havij reports, all you gotta do is you use Google. So you go to Google and you say, show me all the pages with Havij report on the title. And SKG Consultancy comes up at the top. I didn't try it, I just use Google. It's indexed, it's out there. So you go click on that link, again, publicly accessible page, you're not doing anything inappropriate, it's all indexed, and you got a dump of passwords, emails of people who were using the tax services. All the data is out there, all the data is indexed, but it's right under the nose. So tip 1, really know what's in your environment. So tip 2, don't chase the security trends. So what does it mean? So I was visiting a friend of mine at NIST 6 months ago, and he's a famous security guy who develops NIST security standards. So I come to his house, and we get in a car to drive to work because I was given a talk there on security, and he parks the car and leaves his bag in a car with a laptop and doesn't lock the doors. And I say to him, Renee, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You didn't lock your car. You leave in your laptop back in a bag. He says, I don't want somebody to break my, if I lock the doors, if somebody breaks my car, they're gonna break my windows. I don't want them to break my window. Now, I live in New York, so first of all, I would not leave my bag. Second of all, I put the wheel lock when I get out of the car on the wheel. So because I'm paranoid and people look at me like I'm crazy. But the point is, he was completely rational. People don't break into cars in that neighborhood. And so what am I trying to say? If you think about security, it's not just the threat, it's also the location, the vulnerability, and the cost. So just because all of a sudden an e-commerce company next door got breached with a advanced persistent threat, malware on your system, doesn't mean that you need to change your security roadmap and go fight advanced persistent threat, get Carbon Black or something like that. No, you might be a hedge fund. You might have to be focused on data leakage prevention. That stuff might not matter to you at all. So don't chase trends. Do what's right for your company. And so the corollary of that is that the security solutions that work for large bank might not work for a small startup, and vice versa. You got to do what's right for your company. You got to tailor what you do for the environment that you're in and the company that you're in. So don't follow trends is tip number 2. Do what's right for your environment and assess what your biggest risk, what the biggest value is, what could happen if that gets breached. So tip number 3, be proactive instead of reactive. So what does proactive instead of reactive mean? So there's an interesting dichotomy. If you look at the security budgets, 80% of our budgets are going towards reactive solutions. Antiviruses, firewalls, various type of solutions where you're waiting to be attacked, when you attack, the solutions are gonna sound alarm, and then hopefully you do something about it. But you look at an efficacy of many of those technologies, and they detect only under 5% of the threats. Like that's the detection ratio. So you're spending 80% of your money towards things that detect less than 5% of the threats. And only 20% of a budget allocation in many companies is going towards the Security 2.0 toolset. And the Security 2.0 toolset means that you share information like FSISec or NHISec. You look at real-time threat intelligence. Before waiting to be attacked, you try to find out what are people talking about your company. Are you being targeted? How do you stay ahead of a game? How do you find out if you are the target? Proactive solutions like security ratings, proactive solutions like new type of machine learning activities that look at an unpredictable environment and try to make sense of it. The other interesting thing is we don't need more data. We need less data. Like that's a contrarian statement. Like we don't need more security data. We need a lot less of it. What you need is you need insights. You need analytic insights. You don't need a threat intelligence feed that's gonna tell you, I don't know, you have FTP port open, SQL port open, who cares? Like if you tell me that you have an FTP port open on Saturday every day at 2 o'clock every Saturday, and then it closes at 4 o'clock, that's interesting. Maybe it's maintenance. Maybe somebody's exfiltrating the data on Saturday and I'm not paying attention. But you just delivered an interesting analytic insight for me. You don't need a threat intelligence feed that's going to tell you, oh, here's what the bad guys are talking about. Like, you also don't care if they talk about your organization. They talk about OWASP all the time. All the time. But they talk in a context of downloading the OWASP tools and trying them for, attacking in that case. But you care about context. Context is very important. They might talk about your company, but if they say, you know what, I see this URL and it has this vulnerability and I can try this, that's enough context that they're trying to attack a particular URL and you can act with it. And so, again, going back to the point that it's all about, I think that ultimately, I don't think that we really have a security problem. We have a cost problem. And what I mean by that is it's a lot more expensive for a defender to protect than for attacker to attack. You have to protect every single door, but you have to get into only one door. So how do you shift the cost from a defender to an attacker? Suppose you get on the organization and you have honeypots everywhere, you have encrypted data, data is locked up in a special place, there are tons of honeypots, so you don't know which IP address has vulnerabilities, which ones are not. All of a sudden you're shifting the cost to the attacker versus trying to protect every single point in the environment. And the whole point of having more insights but less data is that you can make quicker business decisions, because ultimately it's all about the business decisions. It's not about security, but it's about what you do for the business. And I think that a lot of people operate in the context of a local maximum versus a global maximum. So like a local maximum is how you're the best at your job. Your director of information security, I've patched everything, I fixed everything, I've done a great job. Like you've done a great job for your team, but you've not done a great job for the company. It's a difference between local maximum and a global maximum. If you work for Guild, like I used to, like 6-7 years ago as a CISO, my job wasn't security. My job was to sell pants and trousers and shirts. And if you were in marketing, that was the same job you had. If you're in an investment bank, your job is not to do security or do trading or do other stuff. Your job is the same as every single other person's in the company. How do you make money? How do you protect a business? Everybody has one job, and that job is the mission of the business. And that's the gap that a lot of security practitioners don't understand. And then they complain that it's difficult to deal with the business guys because they're going to say, you can't do this, you can't do that. And they're being viewed as a no guy instead of somebody who is trying to find solutions. So robustness instead of resilience. So on the top you have Egyptian pyramids, on the bottom you have a coral reef. So robustness is, Egyptian pyramids are robust. They stood the test of time, they stood through many years, bad weather, good weather, so they're very robust. They're still standing, they did not fall away. At the same time, if you blow up a bomb inside the Egyptian pyramids, they're gonna fall apart. The coral reef is not robust, right? But the coral reef is very resilient. If you chop away part of a coral reef, it's gonna regenerate itself, but it's not as robust as a pyramid. And so it's a very good analogy given by former General Stanley McChrystal in his book, Team of Teams. Very good book about team design and organizations, and it very much applies to security. So how do we focus more on resilience instead of robustness in our organizations? So what does that mean? So what it means is the world is really complex. The world is very complicated, and there are all kinds of things that the attackers could do. And so we are spending all this effort and money and building defense after defense, like onion layer security, to try to get the bad guys away. But like the point is, if somebody's determined enough, they're always going to get in. Like they're always going to get in, no matter how much money is spent. So what about instead developing the resilience thinking of just assuming that you're going to get hacked? Assume that things are going to go wrong. And then the question is, how did you develop your capabilities to deal with the uncertainty, to deal with an issue? And honestly, this is part of the reason why most of the security startups fail, and why most of the CTOs and CIOs don't buy, because not a single vendor's solution is going to solve your problems. Imagine that you're trying to mitigate denial of service attacks. It's not enough to buy Prolexic from Akamai or Cloudflare and you're done. Like, no. Did you develop a capability to deal with a denial of service attack? No, you just spent the money on a vendor tool. Where's the playbook? How's your staff going to react when there's a denial of service attack that happened? Have you trained them? How are you going to escalate? Right? So the same with any tool. It's not about what your team is doing or not doing, but how to develop repeatable capabilities to do the same things. Imagine your team is a machine. You have 100 people in your team. Like, how do you develop repeatable capabilities to do certain things? What do you have and what capabilities are missing? So maybe you develop the so security awareness training, the same thing. It's not enough just to give a presentation. It's not a repeatable capability. That's just giving a talk. How are you going to test the people that they learned what they heard? How are you going to do it iteratively? How are you going to adjust? So the same with security, how do you develop resilience when you're attacked? What if the attacker gets in? What's next? How do you develop those capabilities? Now, tip 5, and that's the last tip before I jump into some fun statistics, is how do you look outward to look inward using OSINT to detect a breach? And using open source intelligence in general is tricky. And the reason it's tricky is because there's a lot of false positives, there's a lot of noise, there are many different sites, so you have to correlate information from all these different sites. Getting information at scale is difficult. Type in a Google dork and Google is easy. That's going to give you a couple of things, but try doing it a million times. Google is going to block you. You start rotating proxies, they block you yet again. So like, how do you develop a data collection at scale? And so as I used in an example, when we looked at that taxation site, a lot of the time the data is hiding in just like plain sight. So like for example, this is a beautiful castle called Castello de Amorosa, and you're looking at it from the outside. So does anybody want to guess when this castle was built? Like, let's take some guesses from the audience. 461. Like, all you have is a picture. 1005. 1975. Okay, what else? All right. So now let me show you one more piece of data. This, like, it's a beautiful castle. And so this is a picture of that castle under construction. And I was bummed out, by the way, because it's a vineyard in Napa Valley. So I went there with my wife and I paid a pretty hefty entrance fee. And then I walk in and I'm like, wow, it's a beautiful 18th century castle. And I walk in and pictures of castle under construction are hanging. So I was a bit bummed out, bummed about the situation. But the data point was there. If you could just x-ray through that, then you could find out. So here's another example. It's a website with Erin Andrews. Erin Andrews was a sports reporter, and she was videotaped through a peephole, and so and the video was posted. And a lot of people started looking for the video. They couldn't find it anywhere. And one day you get a website called video.report-cnn.com, Erin Andrews peephole video. And so the question is, just like a castle, you're looking at it, you search it on Google, and one of the top results, right along CNN.com, like /politics, video.reportcnn.com. So what do you guys think? What are some, it's not a trick question.
It's not a video because it's zero. It's not just a picture.
Okay, what else? What are some other thoughts?
It's a malicious site.
How do you know?
With the naming convention,
Okay.
you would not have report -CNN, and it's somebody's trying to make use of a reputed domain.
So very good.
It's like a phishing. It's like a phishing site.
So very good. So first of all, it's not CNN.com, it's video.reportcnn.com. The interesting part is it actually embedded all the stuff from CNN. So if you look at a source code of the HTML page, it would just do a lot of embeds from CNN. It was a real video. It was not a image. And so when you click on the video, what it would do is it would basically say, you know, click here to confirm you over 18 years of age, because it's like you know, a bit inappropriate. You click yes, you click no, and then if you click yes, it plays. And the video was very smart. I've done a bunch of research on this back in 2005, 2003, 2005, I don't remember when. But basically it would check what IP address you're coming from. And if you're coming from a big organization, Microsoft, McAfee, Intel, others, or law enforcement agencies, it would just play the video. Nothing would happen. So you watch the video. And if not, and if you go too often to the site, like if they see that you're going there too frequently, which might mean you're analyzing, also would just play the video, nothing would happen. If you go there, though, for the first time, it would check if you're on Windows or Mac, and it would basically inject various type of cocktails of malware on your computer. And what's interesting is it was a family of Trojans that posed as a fake Adobe Flash installer, and so it would basically use the trick of downloading extra codecs to play the video, but instead of downloading the codecs, it would download the malware into your computer. And if you did investigation of where's the IP address from where the malware was hosted from, and you just look what other websites host this type of stuff. The same guy who basically created it, he hosted it in Taiwan, the server which was serving the malware. He created thousands of websites about job, about online gambling, how to get a better job, latest political events, and he would inject them all over Google results, Bing results, all types of results. So you would go and it would appear in top results. And if you look at Alexa traffic of how many people went there, millions of people whose computers would get infected. So signals are there. But so example number 2. So one day I was looking at this vacation. I was going to Beijing for work back when I was at Goldman. And there was this website that I just stumbled upon called Travel China Vista. And it would talk about various type of cultural activities and, you know, kind of like fun stuff. Like, let's see, where's my culture list? China Vista. So basically you go to that, you go to that site and it says arts and crafts, what do you do in China, what do you do, various stuff. So how do we know if the site is real or not real? How do we know if it's safe or not safe? Like, what would you do? So what do people think? Again, you're not going to be able to use any intrusive vulnerability tools. I tried Havij, nothing popped up. What are some other ideas?
Check the age of the site and check the DNS records.
Yeah, looked okay. Check the age, looked at the DNS, looked okay. What else? What are some other ideas?
Google it.
Googled it, okay. There were some interesting things that I discovered, but not on the first result page. What else? So I looked at the URL, and basically, I looked at the URL. It says ID equal to 1, so I just typed random stuff, and it basically outputted a stack trace, and it said unknown column, and I thought that's kind of weird. That's not kosher type of programming when you just output stack trace. So I started Googling. I didn't want to go further, so I started Googling, and I discovered a website in like page 2, Gaza Hackers, for hackers located in the Gaza sector in Israel, in Palestine. And they were talking about China Vista. And I'm like, that's weird. So I started flipping through the hacker site, and I noticed that they're playing with the URLs and talking about the URLs. And if you basically put ID equal to 1, union select all, concat login name password, you can like dump all the passwords and all the stuff from the site as well. Yeah, no pictures, please, of that. No pictures of that. So yeah, so that was the screenshot of a site, and I didn't think that Gaza hackers would be traveling to China anytime soon, so it was a little bit weird. But again, there was a signal, right? There were signals, and we're missing those signals every single day because we're bombarded with so much uncertainty and so much information every single day, right? So I'm scrolling in the wrong direction. Okay, so which website is more secure, Donald J. Trump or HillaryClinton.com? How would you find out? I don't know. How do you know? That's what I checked for. I don't know if I mentioned that somewhere. Yeah. So I was curious, just, and I typed dig. Dig is the command to check DNS records, space txt, space, thing. And one of them was hosted on Cloudflare, which means it was prevented from denial of service attack. And yeah, as you mentioned correctly, Trump's one was behind Cloudflare. And it's like, I don't know, 10-minute, 15-minute config change. So, there's all kinds of interesting data that we can dig up in retrospect. So all the signals are really there. You just need to know where to look. You need to know where to look. So I'll mention briefly what Security Scorecard does, and then I'll open it for questions. I want to share with you interesting data statistic that we compute. But basically, as I mentioned, what we do is we collect data like this. So we go look at every single IP address in the IPv4 space. That's 4 billion IP addresses, every single domain out there, hundreds of thousands of domains. And we look at things that we can collect non-intrusively about companies that are kind of out there, and then reduce it to a score. And the way that we reduce it to a score is we don't make subjective judgments, but we compare companies to each other. So if you're big financial and you have 1,000 malware infections last month, we're going to compare you to other large financials and say, wait, everybody had 5,000 and you had 1,000, so objectively you're 5 times better. But if you are like a small retailer and you had 1,000 and every other small retailer had 10, then all of a sudden you're much worse. So we're looking for those trends and patterns. I'll answer it in like a minute. Go ahead, actually, Tom.
I was going to ask if you're doing dumps of census
Yeah, yeah.
Or it's like 700 gigs every week.
Yeah, I know Zakir and David, the University of Michigan guys. We gather it ourselves. We look at census. We gather it ourselves. But yeah, we do. So the question that we basically asked was, can you instantly and non-intrusively measure security of any company in the world, like any company, without them giving you permission or consent? And that's the type of data that we try to gather. And so if you think about an architecture of what we do, basically we have threat market, and threat market is a data collection system. It looks at hacker forums, it scans every single IP address, we reverse engineer malware, extract DGA seeds out of malware, and then sinkhole them and see which computers are infected, communicating to our sinkholes. So all kinds of data, and then terabytes of data every single day. So it's constant amount of data that needs to be piping into the system. And then what we do is we also, and that's actually the really hard part. The really hard part is not gathering the data, but how do you know what IP addresses belong to the company? Like, that's the really hard part. And the reason it's very hard part is because you can get the low-hanging fruit very quickly, like errand records, whois registries, enumerate subdomains, all that other stuff. But how do you know if somebody just took an instance and put it on EC2 Amazon without telling anybody? It's not an errand, it's not an AppNick, it's not a subdomain. How are you going to find out that instance? How are you going to figure out what are the data centers, subsidiaries of companies across the world? And that's a really, really hard problem that we spent millions of dollars, literally, every single year trying to solve. And we can get better, but we're making some good progress. And then we assign a scorecard. And so the way that it looks is we give you a score. So if United Airlines a year ago, you would not be great. And then we tie those type of things to data breaches. And we say, we basically have a team of data scientists, and they go back historically 3 years ago and say, the companies that had a bad grade versus a good grade, how did we differentiate from a statistical perspective, and give you the actionable intelligence of what you can do to reduce uncertainty. And so we compute all kinds of fun statistics. So I wanted to close with 2 pieces of statistic and then open the floor for questions. So when you aggregate all the industries and say which industries have the most things exposed, government was at the bottom, education was at the bottom, and financial services, technology, retail were some of the top industries. It wasn't entirely surprising because education is a vertical that's based on sharing, openness, and government just has a huge attack surface. But there were some very interesting findings that we discovered. And the final part is we also asked an interesting question. What are the signals that tell us that can help us predict when a breach is going to happen? And so the graph you see in here is a graph of malware, like how much malware we saw emanating out of a company. And we got malware through our own sinkholes, through partnerships with various companies like Team Comrie and others. So you get all these dumps of malware and say, let me go back historically 3 years ago, and the companies who were the worst versus the best, which ones of them announced the breach, which ones of them did not. And what we saw is that the companies who were the worst, there were some companies who were breached that had no malware, right? And there were some companies who never were breached, who had a lot of malware. But nonetheless, statistically, there was a significant difference of 3.5 to 4x, where if you had a lot of malware, this graph right here, of mistakes, then the company is more likely to be breached. And if you had no malware, then you're less likely to be breached, 4x less likely. And the reason it makes sense, why does it make sense? Why can you claim that if there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that are misconfigured, why can you claim that you can try to predict this type of events? So first of all, if anybody is determined enough, anybody can get hacked. You could have very little low-hanging fruit and you still get breached. But the thing is, if there's a lot of misconfigurations, if you're doing a lot of things that are sloppy, you're not applying the patches, you have lots of malware pinging outside of your company, there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit that other people are going to find out. If we find it, there's going to be other people who find it. And so that means that the company is, there's some interesting statistical inferences that we can make. And with that, we're going to open up for questions.
On the prior graph that you showed,
Yep.
there's an intersection where the best and worst kind of like even out. Can you explain that?
Well, it's a statistical graph, right? I mean, basically what this shows to you is if you look at if you look at a score from 0 to 100, right? So 100 is the best security, 0 is the worst security. Basically, what this graph shows to you is that if you look at a score of 82, for example, 82% versus 78%, there's no huge significant statistical difference, right? But if you look at a score that's really bad, the score that's 60 or 70, and you compare it to a company that's 90%, for example, there's a significant statistical difference if you go back and look at the breaches. Just because there's so much stuff that's off, there's so much stuff that's misconfigured, that there's a difference. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So do you sell your services to cybersecurity underwriters?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, so like if you look at kind of who pays us money, we have companies who pay us money to monitor their vendors, their partners, like NASDAQ, McGraw-Hill, BNY Mellon, others.
No, it's specifically cybersecurity insurance vendors.
Yeah, so AIG, for example, AIG, Liberty Mutual pays us money, they're customers.
So
Semantic.
if a firm was attempting to buy cybersecurity insurance, they might find that conforming to getting a good score would help them on getting a good price.
Depends on what the insurance underwriter, kind of what policies they have internally, but yeah,
Okay.
the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so companies like Semantic, for example, are also building cyber insurance products. They're licensing our data, a big chunk of our data, and building insurance models on top of it.
So related to that, do you sell the data to individuals or organizations that want to look at your client health to then short the stock?
I'm sorry, say again, to do what? To trade on it. So we had, we had hedge funds ask the question of trading on the stock and so on. But, right now we don't see a correlation yet between the price of a stock and the breach. I mean, if you just look at the breaches that happened, it was a short-term volatility event to the stock price. Like it was a short-term volatility, but for Target, for all the other breaches, the stock is actually trading higher than it was before the breach. So, it drops a little bit, there's some volatility. Maybe there's a way to kind of like make money on that, but no, the answer is no, not right now. Some people are interested in building models. We don't have expertise to do it in-house. We're a security company. But yeah, I'm not aware of anybody doing it yet.
in the process of investigating and providing a scorecard for a company, did it ever happen to you that you got infected?
I'm sorry, say again, we got infected?
Yeah, well, in the process of investigating whether a company is the IP address and to what extent.
I mean, no,
has malware.
no, not as far as I know. I mean, the things I know, the things I don't know, but as far as I know, no.
So maybe who wants to
Like, no, not aware of anything. We're careful.
One more, you got time for one more question. Go
Maybe we'll have the mic.
Come on.
So, want to come over?
I have to give this up.
I think I might have actually met you while you were at Guild. Sit down. So, just a quick question, because it seems like part of what your part of your analysis is based on malware sinkholes, and we've adopted a model this year where we're actually running the malware, and we're really trying to run it on the actual endpoints in jails. So, if you do happen to sinkhole malware, you will see connectivity coming from my organization, but we want that to happen. So, you know, in our particular configuration, that's a good thing. What isn't good is if the malware breaks out of the jail. That's a separate problem, something we're working on with McAfee and other vendors. But we actually do launch malware regularly, and we do that from our organization. So that would, in our case, probably influence your score negatively when, in fact, it's not an issue.
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. So, like, this is a great question. So, first of all, we base a score on, like, hundreds of different points. Ports, hacker chatter, leaked credentials, SPF misconfigurations, malware, etc. Social engineering, like how likely is a company to fall for social engineering? You can measure it from outside, non-intrusively. So what you asked is an awesome question, and you can actually extend that question to many different categories, not just malware, but just in general. That's why computing a security score is really hard. There's so many caveats. Like, if you asked me 3 years ago, I would tell you we would be like done with the algorithm by now, but we're constantly tweaking it, optimizing it. So, for example, kind of like to paraphrase it is, what if I have a honeypot that has all kinds of open ports, then you're going to penalize that IP address. Or if I have a malware in my wireless network and you just penalize my wireless network, but maybe, or if I have a DMZ and it's not virtualized and it's infected, two different things. So that's actually some of the challenges of figuring out how to do a score very well. And so you have to take into account the profile of the organization. You have to, like, basically, if you're a security organization, then this type of stuff is going to happen. If you look at Semantic McAfee, you're going to have a lot of signals beaconing out of the labs. So you have to just take it into account into your model. And we do in some cases. And in some cases, we don't. And then that would be an outlier, right? So great question, not an easy problem, but those are some of the constraints. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Alex Yampolsky. So I don't know if everybody put their card in the bucket to win the drone, but we have answers about that soon. We have a sponsor here that so kindly brought us all together, was able to enable us here, Checkmarks, the guys from Checkmarks. All right. And
Hey, you are going to make.
so do you, I will make the selection, but I want you to do your plug right now because now's your time.
Sure, we can do the plug. So, okay, so anybody know who Checkmarks is?
You have people. You got your people in the room here.
We need more hands. Okay. So basically what we do is application security testing, right? So source code uncompiled. So you've maybe heard this term shift left, right? So that's integrating security earlier in the software development process. So that's what we do it really well, and we're leading the market. So come look at us, right? Check us out.
Yeah, so, okay, who has put their card in for the drone? A few people. You are the few lucky people.
There's like 20 cards in here.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to pick one. It's gonna have to be fair. So I have not looked at these cards. I don't know whose cards are in here.
Here we go.
Can we get a drum roll? Okay. Drum roll. Who is it gonna be? Maybe they're still here. Maybe they're not. We don't know. Okay, this is gonna be the one. Okay. Nikhil Reddy, you are a student, and you have just won yourself a brand new drone, brought to you by Checkmarks. Thank you so much. All right, do you want to keep the lucky card? Here, no, you keep that. That's yours. Okay. Okay. Checkmarks, you guys rule. Okay, now we have another speaker. Speakers, you guys are both going to talk? Okay, so if everybody feels a little hot, maybe we'll take a break for 5 minutes, get some water, get some refreshments, play some games in the other gaming room, hang out a little bit. 5 minutes? Okay, or you just stay in your seats. Bathroom break. I'm going to try to play some have much time to save the world. No. I'm one of those optimists, you know.
I'm executing a few things which is not taken in a good light, and I am able to tell them that so
Yeah, I mean,
I
say,
think I've lost they do have
I think you should read it. Okay.
It's great. I submitted him through another company that didn't want to submit it.
Yeah, I know. That's
And I said, listen, you're free to apply anyway. And he did.
oh, she just wanted like
No.
but the reason for
It's a pleasure to meet you.
well, no, I think she just thinks that
Hey, how you doing? It is a short.
I'm gonna be real quick. But
Everybody, I knew it was a really wrong move to let everybody take a break. Go to the gym. At 8 o'clock at night, these people.
Yeah, we should have done that.
Oh, the other guy was way over.
Yeah, we should have just jumped in and done it. You know, if that guy in the red shirt told her, she was ready for us to go right on. And then the guy in the red shirt says, well, I think you should give everybody a break.
Well, I think everybody's going to hot here. That's a problem.
Yeah, but what are they going to do? Go out and have more Starbucks coffee?
Always a choice. No, I know.
She said 5 minutes. It's been 15, 20 minutes. That's why everybody's gone.
She's supposed to intro. All right, should we?
You should just start talking.
No. I'll go grab her.
Yeah, go grab her.
Tell people 5 minutes. You don't wait 20 minutes. He's your friend. I know, but where is he? Maybe you'll get something out of that. These people are waiting, just patient. We can all leave.
Okay, everybody. Because it's a little hot in here, everyone's kind of cooling down outside, but I think it's okay to give it a whirl because we are very interested in this platform. He did? Yeah. Okay, well, it'd be cool if we had some music. Yeah. If we start, you just have to start, you know?
Yeah, well, we were going to start with
So I don't know if you know who this guy is standing right here, but he is kind of famous. in New York City. M. Henry Jones has been a really big inspiration for me. He's actually created the first rock music video as an animator, and he's going to be launching a show at MoMA on October 31st. They've taken his work and they have converted it into Dolby, so his work has sort of transcended into different realms, into different times. And he spent the last 30 years developing this technology that you're going to hear about today. And I think this is really important that we consider working with this sort of analog, hard technology that can help us see into the future through this fly's eye. You know, it's kind of like, I thought it was kind of a coincidence having fly's eye at OWASP. You know, it's a really interesting technology. And Keith is the CTO of Fly's Eye, and he's going to go over some of the technical stuff about it. I'm gonna kick it off with you, and then you want to talk first?
Yeah.
Okay, Henry wants to talk first, so
Yeah.
he's going to give you a little story.
So I met up with Keith many, many years ago, and it's not a process. The Fly's Eye images that you see out in the hallway were not done by just me alone. I have about 6 or 7 people I work with, and Keith has been there from the very beginning, and he helps figure out a lot of the technical stuff, and he's also very artistically inclined. So I'm really happy to have him, and I just wanted to mention that, you know, in the works you see out there, and you're welcome to come out when we get done giving our little talk, and I'll show you a little bit of stuff I'm talking about. But what we're doing with that project is essentially fragmenting reality and breaking it into little pieces and then reconstructing it photographically. It's been sort of a quest of mine for many of years, and I worked in lenticular photography for a number of years, and now I find that I work with Photoshop and all different types of computer stuff that wasn't even around when I began this work. But Keith has a really very erudite thing he put together. It's PowerPoint, and it goes through a lot of the technical stuff. And I thought he's really great with that. So I'm going to, without taking up a lot of people's time, I'm going to give you over to Keith, my good friend.
All right. Well, thank you, Henry. And thank you, Natasha and OWASP for having, and Microsoft for having us here. And yeah, let's just start here. So here you see the Fly's Eye image, as you saw out in the hallway. And if you see, it's constructed of over 2,000 little images. And each of those images have, or imagelets, has a view of the subject, a distinct view of the subject. And on top of those images sits a screen, a lens screen. And together, those two things reconstruct a object wave of the subject. And that results in the multidimensional effect that you see. And just to show you what a Fly's Eye camera looks like, it's an array of lenses and little cameras. And they each, as you see, take a picture from a different viewpoint of the subject. And each little camera captures its own little imagelet. These cameras can be, you know, in the beginning, they were real cameras, little itty bitty cameras. And, but now we're mostly working with virtual cameras. We have a patent on this, on parts of this process. Mostly it's processing the little images after they go through, and we use a variety of different sort of software effects to enhance the dimensionality of the image. And, you know, we'd go through straight. Microsoft, it's in C# right now, so you'd be happy about that. Okay, so once we have them processed, we have this lens array, as you see, and that lens array is, you know, 2,000 plus little lenses, and a lot of effort was made into making an optical grade lens array. I mean, Henry spent many, many hours with lots of people making this lens arrays, or perfecting the process of making them. So as you see here, you have the lens array, you have, the middle picture is the actual aggregation of all the images, and when you marry them together, you get a dimensional object here, a dimensional picture. So, I mean, that's the basics of this Fly's Eye photography. Oops, how do we go back? All right, hold on a sec. I got excited and clicked twice. All right, so I'm not sure there are too many physicists here who know about optics, but just to give you a little bones on what's going on here. So basically, when you're looking at something, light is coming from a source. It hits your scene, your object, and when it hits that and then it bounces and comes at your eye, what comes at your eye is an object wave. And that object wave contains information about who, when it bounces off the subject, and that, that information is sort of based in 3 dimensions. One is frequency, that's the color. The other one is the amplitude, how bright or dark it is. And the last thing is the phase, which is the depth. And that's how you see an object, without cameras or photography. That's how we see things. Whoops, going backwards. All right, so everybody's aware of normal photography. It's a 3D to 2D process. And, for those who are computer scientists, it's basically a map-reduce function. It takes a multi-dimensional object wave and flattens it out and just sort of maps and reduces it. So what happens is the object wave gets summed up in amplitude, the frequency gets averaged, and the phase gets thrown away. And the phase is what gives you depth, and that's what's gone. So we have a process here of integral fly's eye photography, which goes 3D to 2D and then back to 3D. So it's sort of like machine learning, where you're teasing out that lost information. And the way that works is that because we know the geometry of each individual viewpoint, it brings all those images together and recovers the phase information, which gives you the depth. That's sort of more or less the theory of fly's eye photography. So our current applications that we're looking at for doing this is a fine art portrait of Jim Jarmusch, if you know who that is. Henry has numerous beautiful portraits of famous arts personas from New York. We also look at using it for advertising, also education applications, specifically, in the classroom, some, to further sort of illustrate something with some dimensionality, possible physical security with imaging, and also it could be used to, a lot of our work's done now in the virtual domain, so we could take point clouds or sonar and easily image those out too. So my last thought, and we appreciate OWASP being here, but one of the thoughts I thought about fly's eye is I know that, this is just sort of a thought, is that, when people, they have their networks and they're worried about, securing them, and they get, I think Alex said very clearly, you have too much information, but in a way it's too much information, you put it into SEIM or something like that, trying to tease out some meaning. But I always thought it might be interesting if you sort of use the fly's eye as a sort of metaphor and use the geometry, that is the location of your nodes, how the topology of your network, and maybe use that information to recover some of the lost information that you may have and maybe get a better picture of cyber events. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Any questions?
It's okay.
We have Mark Miller coming up next.
Oh, very good.
You want to talk? No?
I'm good.
Okay, good. All right. If anybody else can corral anybody coming for Mark. Mark, how you feeling right now?
I'm feeling kind of lonely.
You're feeling lonely? I know. Well, should we maybe take the show outside if we had amplification? Yeah? Well, we still have viewers right here on the internet, right? See, that's what's the thing is, like, you have to always remember the people that are out there watching in the underground hacking world. They've been waiting for your talk. Don't forget about them.
Bated breath.
Everyone else is just distracted by distractions.
Have we got somebody's? Is that yours?
This is me. You gonna plug in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What's the better mic to use?
Use the handheld.
The both equal?
I think they are about the
Yeah,
same.
I'm really happy you guys are sticking around.
Switch from.
Mark is a favorite of OWASP's, and we were really happy that he's able to make it here.
Oh, I'm a favorite. It's nice.
You're a favorite, yeah.
Yeah, we did
I'm
these.
gonna find my
in
phone,
our-
everybody found it.
Somebody find Tom because he wanted to see this too. I think he's out in the lobby.
Yeah, have them released.
Thank you, thank you. Nobody look. There we go. All right. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's been a long night. I appreciate it. I recognize some of you in the room. How many people know me from the OWASP podcast? You listen to the OWASP podcast? That's 2. And chapter meetings. Actually, that is a very popular podcast series if you haven't listened to it yet. What I do is interview the project leads at OWASP and try to get more exposure for the projects at OWASP. We got about 200,000 listens, so it's been doing pretty well. One of the things that I do, and you can see from the list up here, I'm adamant that security needs to be part of the DevOps cycle. And I'd prefer to be talking about DevSecOps than just DevOps. So one of the things I do around the world is I help security conferences have a DevOps track. Next month I'm in Belfast for OWASP doing the security track for AppSec EU. I did the one for AppSec USA last year. And it seems to be getting through. How many people are aware of DevOps? Just trying to poll them. Okay, good. So it's reached that mainstream where people actually recognize the word. It's not necessarily that anybody knows what it is yet, but they know it's something that they have to learn about. So one of the things that I did last year with my partner Derek Weeks is set up something called All Day DevOps. And how many people heard about All Day DevOps? That's fascinating, fascinating. Only 4 people in the room. And the reason I asked that is that became the largest DevOps event in the world in a matter of 90 days. So I want to walk you through those 90 days because I think the trajectory of the event is comparable to the trajectory of DevOps in general, the recognition of DevOps, the use of DevOps, and the way that the word is getting spread around. So what is all-day DevOps? First of all, we set it up so that it was in 15 time zones simultaneously. We had 5 simultaneous tracks running at the same time. Did I say 5? That's what I'm doing this year. 3 simultaneous tracks running. Automated security, CI/CD, and modern infrastructure. And what we got is some of the best people in the world to moderate those tracks and help us find the speakers that would be appropriate to take that message to the security crowd about DevOps. So you can see there, it was 3 simultaneous channels on YouTube. What we found is that when Google Hangouts rolled over to YouTube Livestream, it's a very, very solid platform when you want to develop and distribute information like this. We could record up to 8 hours at a time in one batch and immediately have it published within a minute after the session was over. If you haven't looked at YouTube Livestream, it's something you might consider using if you want to do your own webinar, if you want to do your own mini broadcast and put it out there. It's a great platform to use. That's Derek Weeks, my partner there, my partner in crime. And I asked, who thought of this idea? Such a great idea. And yeah, let's go online for 15 hours. I did. And so Derek backed me on this. And what we did is we started messing with the idea of what do we have to do to pull this thing off? Where did it get its name? Anybody ever been to Kennebunk, Maine? If you've been there, you've seen this lady. This is All Day Breakfast. That's the name of the shop, is All Day Breakfast, and that's all they do all day. And I talked to Derek and I said, I got a cool name for the event. Why don't we do All Day DevOps? And it stuck. It stuck. That's one of the great things about getting started. So the germ of an idea starts here. What happens here? And I put some notes up there just so I have some talking notes. You don't have to read all that. But the initial brainstorm between Derek and I started on a whiteboard in the Washington, D.C. area on May 20th. And what we had decided is let's do a 3-day online conference. And with things like this, instead of attending a physical event, we were talking about why would people come? Do you think we could convince 1,000 people to show up? And so as we threw this around over the next couple of weeks, what we came up with, the final idea on June 9th, is very, very close to what we ended up for all day DevOps. The mission statement that came out of this is, we want to reach the community of users globally who don't have access to quality DevOps events. It's an interesting takeover. I did this when I was in the SharePoint space. I did this type of thing for SharePoint where I would travel around the world with a group of us, and we would not literally parachute in, but we would go into outlying areas that were underserved. But I thought this is a much, much better way to do it. So what we've got there is we decided, okay, from now, June 10th to November 15th launch date, this is what we want to do to spread the message. Is this interesting yet? Is it tweaking your interest? I hope, because I'm going to go a timeline now so that you can see when things really started to happen. And the reason for doing this talk, when Natasha called me, she wanted me to do some geeky kind of talk about DevOps. I said, I don't want to talk geek. I want to talk about things that people can actually use when they walk out of the room. So I'm going to try to give you the process we used, show you the tools that we used to do it, and see if you can take that back with you and start and manage your own events. So September 1st, we put out the call for papers. We got one submission, and we just celebrated, arms up in the office. We got a submission, and it passed all around the hall there. September 7th, the Eventbrite attendee registration goes live. And that was a tricky one because we hadn't anticipated people wanting to register without knowing who was going to be there. So we didn't even have a registration form. And so people were going into the CFP and saying, I'm registering for the conference. I'm not submitting a paper, I'm registering for the conference. Holy crap, we better put up a registration page somewhere. So we came up that way. By September 9th, we had 16 people. 16 people that said, we want to come to your event even though we haven't got a clue who's going to be talking or what the hell you're going to be doing. So that was kind of interesting as we looked at it. By September 13th, 4 days later, 80 people registered, and we didn't even have a site. All we had was a registration form up on Eventbrite. So no speaker announcements, just a concept. We're going to talk about DevOps for 15 hours. Now, moving the timeline ahead, we got September 15th. Now we're 60 days out from the event. And I've got a quote here directly. I'm taking all this stuff directly from Slack, by the way. We were running a Slack channel for our management team. And I saw this quote and I started laughing. It says, because I told the team, we're planning on way north of 1,000 participants. Way north of 1,000 participants. As we're talking about potential sponsors. And that means that we were really expecting 12 to 1,500. That's how we got funding from Sonatype when we came in and said, look, we're going to find 12 to 1,500 DevOps people that are going to be interested in the DevOps message. And they said, fine, that's cool, let's go for it. So October 4th, our site actually launched. Now realize the event now is 45 days out, November 15th, and we've got a site up now. Ooh, finally got the site going. What it shows you, and what I was confident in, though, is that we were not running a real world buy your plane ticket, book your hotel conference where you'd have to plan that far in advance. Our differentiator that we had to work with is, why are we going to be better than any other webinar that you can get for free on the same day we're going to be doing this? And the way we did that differentiation is by quality of presentation. One of the things that we said when we put out the CFP is we do not accept vendors. We love our salespeople, we love our marketing staff, but I'm sorry, we're not going to do any vendor pitches, just took it off the board. What we're looking for is practitioners and case studies of people who have done it, who've been there, can tell you how they did it. And that seemed to ring a bell pretty well with a lot of people. So by October 9th, we had locked in the sponsors. And these are people that stepped up, again, without even knowing who the speakers were going to be, what the technology was that we were going to use to pull it off. These were people that are going on blind faith that we could actually do something like this. So you got to give these people a hand, because these are the ones that are forward, future thinking, are really willing to risk a little bit to see if they can help it happen. Now, we started announcing the speakers. What's funny about this, if you know what's up there, half of those pictures are of the organizers, because we didn't have that many speakers yet. So we put the organizers' pictures up there, and it looked kind of cool. Hey, they got something going on there. There's a lot of people going to be talking. So a little magic and waving of the hands. October 11th, 32 days before the event, we had 79 registered in the past 3 days. So something had clicked over. The word had started to get out. 355 total registrations. When you think about that, 355 is approximately what registered for this event tonight. So when you think about what had happened, a no-name event got 355 people to register for the event. It started to happen. Then we sent an email out and a note to the team on the response to the email. As soon as that email went out, at 4:34 p.m., October 11, 2016, we went over 1,100 registrations for All Day DevOps. I mean, we were partying. We already hit our goal. We were there. So, the power of a dedicated, focused email list is going to be the lesson here. The thing that we had with sponsors, in addition to a little cash to help defray the expenses, one of the things that we asked of the sponsors is, please commit to 2 emails to go out to your dedicated email list that talks about DevOps. And that was part of the buy-in of the package. And it was critical because email and grassroots organizations were the key that finally got us over the top here. By October 13th, we had 1,423 registrations. We were over the moon because literally we thought we were done. We're a month out. We haven't got a clue as to the tsunami of registrations that were about to happen. We didn't even have a clue. On October 14th, we finally realized that Australia exists. So we did a reverse image for them and called it All Night DevOps. That seemed to tickle a little bit, so we got 200 more registrations coming out of Australia. That was pretty cool. October 17th, the roster goes. Actually, these are the real speakers now. There are still a couple organizers in there, but the speakers are in there. It's starting to grow, and if you know DevOps, there's a lot of recognizable faces in there. That was one of the advantages, is we could reach out to our network and make that grow. So I got to my design team and said, I need a banner for each of the speakers so that we can acknowledge them, and they can put this in their email, they can send it out, they can put it on Twitter, wherever they want to. And I put that up there because Claire got back to me and said, so you need 54 different ones? And I had to laugh, and I said, yeah, everybody deserves their own. Yeah, that's true. By then, October 19th, 1,831. The funny thing about this is, as I look back and I was putting this presentation together, I started to get excited because I knew what was coming. We had no idea that we would be almost 10 times this by the time we got done. So now, moving the timeline. This is an incredible statement about the DevOps community in general. I was in London. I had put together the DevOps track for IP Expo in London at this time. And Derek and I were standing on the floor looking at all the vendors, and I had an epiphany at breakfast, and I asked him while we were standing there, I said, Derek, would we be doing anything differently if we wanted to get 15,000 people? And he looked at me and goes, yeah? And I said, yeah? And literally that was the epiphany at that moment. Would you be doing anything differently? And you know what we did? The London DevOps meetup group was meeting about 50 feet away from us. So I went and met Mark Cluett. And what we did is we said, would you mind sponsoring our event? Would you mind supporting our event? And in exchange for you telling your group that All Day DevOps is happening, we'll put your logo on our site. And Mark pretty much said, well, that's a no-brainer. Of course we'll do that. So he was the first proof of concept that, yes, there is a different way to do this. So what Derek and I started doing is reaching out to other groups, mainly the meetup groups, mainly groups like this, and saying, we're putting on this event. We really appreciate your support. If you'll tell your membership, we'll put your logo on the site. By the time we got done, we had 40. That's 40 organizations that were helping us spread the word to their groups around the world. That was huge, something that we had not thought of before that made a huge difference. October 2nd, Sauce Labs drops an email, and this happens. Holy moly. This was the exciting part, because we knew now that once each of the sponsors started emailing out, it was going to happen. So October 21st, wake up to a registration count of 3,100 people. We had doubled almost overnight. Okay, the power of email, the power of organizations. What happens next, you'll remember this. The entire Eastern Seaboard internet went down. We were freaking out. The world was against us. They didn't want All Day DevOps to happen anymore. They just came down. I'm sure everybody took it personally, but we were standing there watching to see, because the reg count just stopped. We were used to looking at registration counts by the hour now because we were so excited, and it was 0. We did take it personally, but while we were at that, we called Sketch.org. How many people have heard of Sketch.org, by the way? Awesome people. I've been talking with their CEO for a while. He's an interesting guy. He doesn't live anywhere. He and his girlfriend travel the world for staying in Airbnbs for 2 months. And that's where they work from for those 2 months. Nice lifestyle if you can get it, right? It's nice. So Sketch helped us out a lot. I said, look, something's happening here. We're going to need some help from you guys. Get us a dedicated server. And they didn't even blink. They put us up on a dedicated server because we knew things were going to start happening. 3,300 registration count to begin the day. By 10:30, we had 3,304. Those numbers are backwards, with 22 days to go. This is the image that the team was passing around on Slack. Go, Speed Racer, go. We've got something happening here. You guys that are older than 40 get this. If you're younger, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. Oh, you want a picture of Speed Racer? Go ahead. That was the M, wasn't it? The Mach 5. There you go. All right. Now, October 26th, again, I put up the DevOps Days Kansas City, but not just that one, but more groups started contacting us now, saying, we're here, what you're doing with supporters. We'd love to support you. Can we get your logo on the site? This was great. It was starting to happen organically now. We made the front page of DevOps.com. The reg count shot that to 3,800, supporting, I just told you, went up to 40. Approaching 4,000 with 20 days to go. This was outstanding. And I'm going to give you a peek to the future so you know where we're going with this. By the time we opened the doors that morning at 3 a.m. on November 15th, we had 13,400 registrations. So look where we are 20 days out, and we've got 4,000. And again, we think we're done. We've reached as far as we can reach. Then we have celebrations to start the day because the numbers just keep going up. There's nothing we could do to stop it. Maybe if we turned off the registration form, but I think the way this was going, people were going to find how to do it anyway. So this is, we woke up to the magic number of 5,000, and Matt Howard put this up. Matt is the CMO, at Sonotype, and he was just saying, go, go, go. You guys are machines. Just go. Because everybody, the company was starting to pay attention now. When's the last time the whole entire company paid attention to a project you were working on? That's what was so exciting about this. 100% buy-in across the board. And I laughed and I said, just another day, this Derek and I patting each other on the back here. So November 1st, 299 registrations. That's 300 registrations in a day. And we now have over 30 countries represented for the day. 30 countries from around the world are now participating. November 3rd, we're 2 weeks out, speakers start receiving their packages. We actually bought them leather bags that were logo and embossed with the All Day DevOps logo on it to say thank you for participating in this. These are people that gave up their time for us. We were going to take care of them. And so the speakers started putting that online. Jane got it and said, I just got my bag. And it was funny, if you watch this Twitter thread, you know, I've got 50 speakers that are getting bags, and half of them are following here going, how come I don't have mine yet? Where's my bag? Well, you live in Bulgaria. It's going to take a little bit of time for it to get to you, right? All right. So, yeah, that was a fun part. November 4th, 6,300 registrations. The numbers keep doing. I'm trying to estimate the final count here. This is actually a cut and paste from Slack. Trying to get a handle. We got 9 days to go, averaging 250 regs, 2250 registrations in the coming weeks, blah, blah, blah. We got a chance to hit 10,000. That's a magic number, right? I tell you, when I realized how big it was that we did this, is when I was at RSA last month, and I was in an auditorium with 13,000 people. I went, holy crap. This is how many people we pulled to our conference. It was the first time I was actually able to visualize it. This is how many people's lives we affected in that day. And it was very exciting. Then November 7th, we heard that 33 people had registered for a viewing party. And what the hell is a viewing party? They were setting up a big screen at the office, inviting their clients to come and watch All Day DevOps. Okay, I can live with that. We started offering to promote anybody that was doing a viewing party. By the time we got done, we had a full page of people that were doing viewing parties from Las Vegas to London. I think we had one in Singapore. I know we had one in Portugal. And this did not come from us. It's that organic growth through being part of the community. November 9, we're 5 days out, 9,500 and climbing. November 10, we reached that 10,000 mark, and we are, who is this? I know you young guys know this one. Buzz Lightyear. What does he say? To infinity and beyond. That's where we were when we hit 10,000. November 11th, we had a wake-up call. Bang, another 300 registrations. Trajectory growth looks like this. So I take a step back and look historically. Here's where we started doing a little bit of work. On October 10th is when things really started to work. That's when we started putting the emails together. That's when we started reaching out to people. That's when the promotions started going up on LinkedIn. And you can see the effect. There's an immediate bump. And if you track this, I can tell you on every one of those bumps what happened that day and why that bump went up. So that we know when we do this next time what's going to be effective for us to help promote this thing. November 12th, the diversity of the audience is awesome. The surprise for me in all of this is India was paying attention, really paying attention. A lot of registrations from there. We had good speakers from there. That probably helped out a lot. But there's a huge population in Bangalore in those areas that are interested in DevOps and what's going on. November 13, registrations keep going. November 14, we're a day out. We're aiming for 12,000 people. We're going to keep that registration open until we're ready to crank up at 3 a.m. And so we're tracking 50 to 75 registrations per hour. Oh, man. I still get excited thinking about that. That's just solid numbers. The final registrations, 13,451 for a live online conference. You can clap. That's a big number. That's a big number. Yeah. So I hope that got you excited. Well, that wasn't supposed to do that. I hope that got you excited because you can do this. This was just an idea of two guys sitting at a table saying, what can we do? What would be cool? And so that was the process of getting it done. This was a sad shot when I saw that the counter for how many days, hours, and seconds left all day DevOps, and I looked and it was all zeros. I was like, it's almost like the day after the birthday party, and now you got to clean up the mess, you know. So I want to talk about the tools so you can get kind of a taste. Any questions I can answer so far? Any comments that I can help you with? Yes.
What kind of tools did you use for a webinar?
What kind of tools did I use for a webinar? Funny you would ask. Just as I go to the tools we use slide. Going to go right there. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a question
Yeah.
before you go there. So was this a nonprofit? I mean, did you charge anything or make any money?
Say that out loud because that's critical.
Was this a nonprofit? Did you charge anyone or did you make any money?
Good. Number one, no, we did not make any money. But it was a free event for the public. There was no charge. All you had to do was register, and that got you access to come and participate live, watch live. And it also gave you access immediately to the recordings as soon as it was done. So the price of admission was your email address, basically. I got one more, and then I'll send it back over to you. How did we fund it? That's what the sponsors were for. They kicked in low cash. We just made sure that we had everything covered.
Were you able to get demographics and
Good.
age?
Good.
Who were you affecting?
Were we able to get demographics? We didn't really go that route. What I wanted to know personally was, not just what they were from, but what company do you work for? And what's your title? So that they were self-identifying who they were, which I thought was very cool. One of the things that we found, and I had 40 companies attend with over 20 employees. One company had 300 employees attend. That's how much it got picked up.
Hi, with the growth.
Hold on, I'm gonna need to turn that on.
With the growth of DevOps being bigger and bigger every year, would you still use the same approach? And will this be the only event you're going to be doing annually?
Excellent, thank you, good question. Number one is, you beat me to my second slide after I get to his. And number two is, no, I think that right now it's a critical time in history for us all to think about how security integrates with DevOps, how it becomes a part of the automation cycle that is DevOps and the culture that is DevOps. I'm going to move quickly through the rest of this tool set, and we'll see. We use Slack a lot. We use it to manage the speakers. We used it. We had 1,200 people live on one Slack channel during the conference asking the presenters questions in real time. We use papercall.io. This is how we got out the word to the speakers. Here's how you can register and submit your papers. We used Eventbrite for attendee registration. I've used Eventbrite for years. It's a solid platform. I like it a lot. Sketch.org was new to us, but it worked really, really well. We had we used it, I think we use it a lot at OWASP too for all the AppSec events. So you've seen it before if you attend AppSec. And then we use YouTube Livestream for the presentation meeting. And what I did is I literally had 3 YouTube live streams going at once. And I had crews around the world monitoring each channel to make sure if it went down. Here's one that didn't make the slide deck. 15 minutes before showtime. It was 12:45 in the morning. We know we've got 13,000 people showing up. All internet in the office went dead. Everything flatlined. You talk about people screaming and hollering. It doesn't do any good to scream and holler, but it gets a little energy out, right? And for some reason it came back up, and we had very, very little issues. It was our issue by being on the system at the office at the time rather than YouTube. YouTube, as far as I'm concerned, is a rock when you want to do this kind of stuff. It's unlimited bandwidth. You can have tens of thousands of people watching on one channel. Not a problem at all. It's a huge advantage to use that, and it's free. Guy.
Yeah, did Google call you? Like, while this was going on?
Did Google call me?
Mark, what are you doing?
No, it would have been nice to get a call from Google, say congratulations, but no. I think on their screen, that's just a blip when you think about it. So the people, just really quickly, that's the team in Texas. Did you have your...
Yeah, what was after Slack?
I don't know. Paper call? Yeah. This is the team in Texas. You might know James Wickett, who wrote Gauntlet. Anybody know James? I know. These are the great guys. It's Ernest and Karthik in Texas. We had Shannon Leitz from Intuit, who you might know from devsecops.org. That's her. Andy Mann, Milton Smith from Oracle, and then my team at Sonatype. And I couldn't be prouder of what we did over the course of that month and a half when we really cranked it up. So in a way, you know, the supporting tribes helped us. These are all the 40 groups that helped us. If you have a group, I want to hear from you when I do this again. And we'll get to that. I think this is okay when you get the slide deck. If you want the deck, you can read through that. But basically, be community oriented. Do something for the right reasons. And I know that sounds altruistic and kind of, you know, touchy-feely, but that really is what happened here. We went after to support the community and offer something new, and the community responded. So, with that said, I want to invite all of you to All Day DevOps on October 24th. We're going to do this one for 24 hours with 5 simultaneous tracks. We're adding a government track so that governments from around the world can talk about what they're doing. And we're also adding something called the Tech Crawl, so that the major organizations can give you a peek inside of their DevOps environment and kind of entice you to come and work for them. I think that's going to be a pretty busy channel, I think, because people are going to be wanting to see what's it like to work at these places. So this site is up now. If you go to alldaydevops.com right now, you can register. Literally, registration is less than 30 seconds. alldaydevops.com. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much for spending your time this evening. Thank you for staying.
How many volunteers did you have globally?
How many? You saw them all. The question was, how many monitors do we have? How many moderators? We had a moderator, 2 moderators for each channel, so that if one went down, the other could be up. Okay. Ready? That's for you.
I believe this concludes our amazing event. I cannot believe we had such a good time. A bomb threat, so many memories. We're also having an after party above the DoubleTree. If you can make your way over there, you have to ask for this guy. His name is Fong at the door. He's very cool. And apparently has very good views of the New York City skyline. So if you want to grab a drink, hang out a little bit, you know, kick it, we're going to be over there. It's called a Lenovo, I think it is. Something Love.
I have no idea,
Yeah.
but I like your Minecraft classes.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much. If you want to sign up for membership at OWASP, please do. In the New York City chapter, we would love to have you and your involvement. And I hope to see you guys next time, and girls and women and people and aliens and things. Okay, thank you so much.